Hi everybody, my name is Jessica Holyfield and I'm a professional dance choreographer and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States, and we are going to do a really fun video today. It's been a hot minute since I've done one of these, but I can't wait to get started. So I had reached out to a fellow content creator by the name of Jarrell, but his handle is ladiesman5678. You may have seen him as the y'all ain't ready guy on shorts. He also does dance analysis, so I think it's really fun to kind of have some commonality. And I had reached out because I always like to be helpful, especially to my fellow dance coverists, especially of some K-pop content that is analyzed. And I had asked him if he was open to doing a movement analysis to see if I can be helpful in some way as an analyst and teacher and educator to make him feel more comfortable at learning choreographies, because something that I admire about his movement is the fact that he tries both feminine and masculine styled choreos. He doesn't stick to a particular niche, which I always have a lot of respect for. And he answered back. He said yes, he would love the help, and he said that he really struggles with more of the feminine style of choreos, which is the usage of the hips and the neck and the back, and he says it just takes him a little bit longer to do that style in particular. And he even sent me reference material of what he's normally used to doing, and so we're gonna take a look at that. Not only that, I did compile a playlist of a lot of his covers, not his Y'all Ain't Ready covers, because I feel like a lot of those have a nice little playful aesthetic about them, so I want us to appreciate those for what they are, but he has some kind of independent covers that I feel that he really has invested a lot of time in, and so I want to do my due diligence and take a look to see if I can be helpful at helping him unlock his feminine side more naturally. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so this is going to be the reference material. He's going to be the one that's in the white long sleeve on the left side. Good song choice. Da, da, da. Bum dee 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 bum 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 bum. I'm assuming that's the choreographer, one of the choreographers. So this is shot at off stage, so it's gonna have some GRV influence, which I see out the freaking wazoo already. He's come back into frame. He's over here on stage left, nope, stage right, with a white long sleeve. Top line. Bum diggy diggy bum 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 bum. Good ISO. Bum diggy diggy bum 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 bum. Alec Albright, my guy. Yeah, there is a GRV influence if he's in here. Fun. Okay. So pretty much for the most part, I mean, we can kind of have a pretty good idea of his movement quality. Heavy GRV affiliation. If you don't know GRV, they are a group based out of the West Coast of the United States, and this is their studio offstage. They are heavily competitive, just like I would name, you know, The Company, Choreo Cookies, that whole scene. GRV is a heavy player and heavy hitter in that. As you can see here, I have a lot of physical experience learning from choreographers affiliated with GRV or have been affiliated. I've learned their, what is it? Welcome to My Hood set. I learned that excerpt from way back in the day. Sora Yang, Brittany Aguilar. I think she was with GRV at the time. I've also learned from Bam Martin. Ooh, bless it, that boy. Ooh. And then I personally know Alex Albright too. So I have a lot of understanding. Nick Joseph, heavy hitter in GRV. He's choreographed for a lot of artists that you guys know and love, like in Hyphen and BTS Bangtan Sonyeondan, just to name a few. Super dope. Okay, totally understand movement quality. Jarrell, Totally understand why your hips and your shoulders feel a bit on the stiffer side for feminine stuff, because when it comes to GRV choreo, you have to use your core so much because of the speed of the syncopation of a lot of choices. So I don't know if this is affiliated with GRV or not, but just going off of like who the choreographers are, that's what I'm gleaning. Okay, so this is kind of our exposure to what his movement quality is. Let's get into the actual K-pop right here. Heart stops. So we're just gonna marathon these if you're okay with that. Okay. Oh, also keep in mind, every single one that I picked in this playlist, I have done an analysis of, or I have physically done. So there's no choreo in here that I will be unfamiliar with. Rise Impossible, I've physically done this one. I've also done 17s, and I've analyzed Lose My Breath. Ooh. It's heavy, heavy house influence in this one, just like Maestro's Dance Break. Oh, you decided to go do like all of it. Little loose leg. I stopped halfway. More power to you. Here we go with some girl choreo. Like it's magnetic. Magnetic. This one was tricky for me to do, to like look peppy, but also get everything right. That was cute. Okay, I'm seeing what you're talking about, of feeling very stiff. Sweetheart. Candyman, Bodily, Kirsten. This is a tricky one to just learn, without taking the class. This ain't like a K-pop choreo. Do you know what I mean? Sheesh. But I watched Kirsten and Bada's choreo to this when they did it at Radical Jam, right? Summer Jam. There it is. Da-na-na-na, kiss me. This one frustrated me when I learned it because it's so specific and it's just simple enough that if the groove is off, the groove is off. So I totally understand this one for sure. They say it's easy. It's not easy to replicate if you're not used to the pocket. And Isabel did it too. Little butterfly, hey! I also added your choreography. Because I wanted to see more movement quality from you. Yeah. I'm learning lots from watching your movement quality. This is so fun for me. Thank you for agreeing to letting me look at you with a microscope. Yeah. Woo! I heard that. You know who choreographs like this? Well, not this one, but your own choreo. It reminds me of smidgen of Brian Puspos. Okay, this is Kirsten's drop with Next G Archive. That was my first Next G analysis. This is a really good choreo. Love it. Ooh, okay, you went with the Guada Guada one. Ay, 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 too much. Put 'em up, make it right. My ego, Mitchin, boom. Hey, a little sans part. I just recently did this one. It's freaking full out. Let's go. Yep. La 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 la. Cool. I thought you were gonna go with Hyunjin's part, but that was dope. Got a music. Little bit of house. Looking better, good. Gee. Actually, bum 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 bum. Sonuko. Oh, love that. Fun. Okay, we went through all of your stuff, which I think is super, super dope. Okay, we're gonna go from the top of this. Okay, so, firstly, I'm really excited to do this, and, we are going to kind of look at all of your movement quality, not just more of the feminine styles, because I think it all ties together in a great way. So you can, honestly, Jarrell, you can take everything that I said with a grain of salt, or you can try to apply it. It is completely up to you. I'm doing this, it actually ends up growing me as somebody who articulates information to see if I can honestly be helpful in some way. So firstly, I do want to ask you if you actually breathe while you do choreography, because whenever I would do choreography a lot of times, I noticed that I am holding my breath a lot, especially when there's a lot of quick information going on and a lot of things that have to be hit, have to be syncopated, a lot of polyrhythms, things that are very unnatural for me, specifically whenever it's a style that I'm not really familiar with, I tend to not breathe because I'm so busy focusing on doing the movement. So I'm wondering if whenever you do just any choreo that feels out of pocket, see if you're actually breathing, because that could be partially as to why you feel like your torso locks up, because I am noticing that across the board, that your shoulders and your usage of your shoulders and your lats, there's not a lot of isolation or groove happening in the torso that allows for some of the movements to fill up the amount of time that they normally equate to on these types of tracks. So starting right here with Lose My Breath, yes, this one is not on YouTube, my analysis for it, but I have analyzed this whole thing. I love it. Watching their perspective, I lose my breath. Now with this one, it does come from a perspective of, what's the word? Subtlety, like the power of patience and subtlety. And you do that pretty well, filling up your space. It's really good. Very clear in understanding what all the movements are for all of this right there, right there. That right there, I think, is a camel walk. So that would be another thing that I'm noticing too. And whenever we get to the house track, so like Rise is Impossible, this is where I'll really refine this statement. But I can tell that you have a really heavy understanding of choreo retention or picking up choreography. But I can see that some of our fundamentals are not quite in a place where we would feel these as like in isolation 100% natural. So like an example, like a camel walk, those are like little moments that really help showcase a sense of using your own flavor or your own groove, right? So all of these here with your sweeps, call those ranajams. I can also tell like a lot of times we're keeping our body pretty linear. We're not really allowing any sense of legato or smoothness in the torso. It could be we may not be breathing, or it could be because we're so used to using our extremities and our biceps specifically to justify a lot of our fullness and range that we are not thinking about settling into any particular type of groove like what we're seeing here. So Nothing crazy. Like here's the deal. These are all like super subtle things that a lot of times we don't even realize we do ourselves. But I mean, so far you're doing freaking great. Now this right here. So we're going to talk about Maestro's footwork section because there's heavy, heavy house in it. And I believe Rise is Impossible's back to back. So we're going to talk about both of these here. So this is considered, I mean, you technically got the texture of how they do it better than I. It was really hard for me to do and to separate into doing it the way that they do it because they all do it slightly different. And so it was hard for me to kind of get over that for myself when I was learning it. But you're matching their texture very, very well here, especially for the loose legs, the little part, this right here, that little da-da-da. Kind of felt like you were doing a little bit of a Juby slide or a slick back is what that felt like right there. I believe it's supposed to be like a heel toe progression out of that. And the only reason why I know that, though, I'm going to be very real with you, is because I learned it from Torch. And Torch is the one who choreographed Rise is Impossible, and he is a house dancer. And when he covered this, that's what he did. So I technically learned from a house dancer and then texturized it with 17. You may have learned it from 17. So more power to you, you brave soul, because they do it all so different because it's a concert run through and it makes total sense because they're human. But you did pretty good on catching that. I can tell that you kind of pulled a little bit more from your right side than your left side. And then go hit, 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 hit. Kick. That little switch through. So honestly, you did a pretty good job on this one. This one is straight house fundamentals. I don't know what fundamental classes you take. I don't know what Offstage offers either. So I am curious about that. The little kicks are nice. Call me flying with my dreams. So that's a shuffle variation. Did pretty good there on that. But this part right here with the toes, the rotation around, this is a really, really tricky section. It tripped me up, and I've done house for quite a few years. So I understand this part feels a little bit tricky because we didn't quite hit that little heel rotation. But a lot of Rise technically don't do it either. So it's, I mean, you're in good company for sure. That's just really the only section. So fundamentally, there are just a couple areas where I can feel that maybe like the fundamentals aren't quite as refined, or the foundation of styles like of house or of hip hop is refined, but your choreography retention really helps allocate for that, especially in these contexts of being able to pick up information, especially information that you're unfamiliar with, because I do know in the setting of Offstage or in those types of studio formats, learning choreo under a particular niche of choreographer, which GRV is very heavy hitting in a lot of cases, you're able to build up your stamina on full out choreos more effectively in that environment than in others, you know, but they don't quite have a ton of fundamental classes offered at Offstage in comparison to other places that I do know they offer it, like Movement Lifestyle. So if you do live in LA to where you are able to get ML, that kind of like studio spot, I would highly recommend going and taking from like Ray Bassa. I don't know if he teaches at ML though, at least when I was there he did, but my point being, like, I really think taking like a house fundamental class, honestly low-key a whacking fundamental class, can really help with the feminine posture of using your back and your lats and more of like that feminine hold. That would be a really good suggestion. That helped me with Chung Ha's piece, and just taking whacking really solves a lot of these like postural conversions between hitting something so hard with GRV and like really sitting and showcasing a more like power presence, bad A environment, if that kind of makes sense. So with that little sweep around, like I can also tell too, because you're locking up your torso, there's no jack present, which is a groove of house. And that jack really helps actually with your weight shifts. Whenever you do your sweeps or you do a lot of the shuffles, having this in your torso, really hard to do with this choreo because of the speed of it. But that would really help in getting this style a lot more effectively. And side note, everything that I'm telling Jarrell, I think applies to everybody, including myself. And I speak from an empathetic lens, like I said, because I've physically done a lot of these choreos, and they're on my channel if you want to go watch as well. That's totally fine. But we're here for Jarrell, to help Jarrell feel better about moving in general. Love it. But the subtlety here, lose. That with the slide, that was really nice with the pickup. Super nice. Can't lose, impossible. So that's really the part that I've done. So we'll kind of stop there with that one because we're here more so for the feminine choreos. But I think like my point talking about like fundamentally working on styles really helps enhance your particular artistic movement quality whenever you do other people's choreographies, is really something I've learned from physically taking fundamental classes, but also learning advanced level choreography both online and in person. So that would be something from one dancer to another. That would be something that could be helpful. Now this choreo I have done, I've struggled with. I understand the trickiness of it with a lot of the swings. So let's talk about it. Now this right here, what you're doing is you're actually accenting by pulling the hips back versus I actually struggled and I didn't realize that I was doing this incorrectly until about the last take. Then I realized it, I fixed it. How they sit in the hips is very interesting. There's a sense of opposition happening when you sit in the hip and you sit and you allow the chest to tilt and rock. And that's something that I'm noticing with you specifically. And that just comes from the GRV pocket or dancing at offstage. When you have GRV choreographers, that's something that is not a thing as much, is using like a legato in the chest. That's not like this right here. No, not there. Like, I totally get that. And it's such a niche. It's such stamina building, I swear. But in choreos like this, it tends to be a little bit trickier to navigate through. So it's like the hue. So there's a lot of these little tilts that happen in the chest. So that would actually be a really great recommendation I would give you for this type of choreo or any feminine choreo in general, is whenever you see and you have a line, think about pulling from your chest, but not just the front to back, but think about the side to sides. And so whenever you kick a leg out, think about what your chest is doing, and you want to think about pushing it diagonally to the side or really pushing it linearly to the side. Those little instances, like, I think it'd be, I mean, I want to stand up and show you, but it'd be really, really hard to get my camera in focus for that. But my point being, like, there's a lot of power that comes from this, but also what comes with that though is it's gonna take time to calibrate it, especially if most of your training that you're getting doesn't use it. It's gonna be really hard to get familiar with this without taking time while you're learning choreos that have it to sit in it. It sucks. Like, it really does, having to work on it, but it's something that I've been there. I've struggled that through and through. There will probably be a Jess roast that I'm going to roast me doing my own stuff from the earlier days, and it's going to be awesome. But I digress. My point being, it's like, your movement, that's probably why it feels uncomfortable. It's because you're not allowing your chest to really sink into any aspect of a line that is extended from the hips or from the legs. Yeah, like all this, like you're using it more like a funk style in the hips and you're pushing it back versus creating the hip to go to one side and you're creating a line and there's a pull between the chest and the hips in opposition. And that like it's magnetic, using the chest to really help accent it with the hands. This part here. Cute. I love the fact you were like, we're here for it. That part right there with the leg is nice. I also noticed this, I think it was with Easy with New Jeans, right? That one? No, that's Easy with Le Seraphim. Super Shy with New Jeans. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. But with that one, I could tell where you were sitting in your hips on that, and that's why it looked a bit isolated in the lower half. But here, in this case, that little swing, boom, you made that so like, boom, so accented and isolated. It's a whole vibe, don't get me wrong, I love it. But it's supposed to be more of like I mean, yes, there is low-key a pelvic thrust in it, but it's definitely more, there has to be like a little pull in the chest in order for it to show a huge degree of contrast when you push the chest back, when you showcase the hips in this one. But here it is definitely arms, pelvic iso instead of a swinging effect that takes place in the body. That part was nice, boom, boom, but I did notice you kind of catered more towards the hips on that versus actually, hold on, I wonder where I would do it. Boom, boom. I think the weight shifts, I think, would really help for that as well. There you also went ding, 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 and you didn't actually like hop into it, but that was really awkward when I had to do it, so I totally understand. And this part right here, pretty nice, very nice. Good job on that too, that was great. And you also used your shoulders instead of allowing there to be a sense of accent in the inner thighs to create that bounce or that rigid bounce that happens in the weight on that. Magnetic. I love that you did that because it's supposed to be like super fun with a subtle arch in the back and you said, eh. I love how you did it, not gonna lie, I like that a lot. And then you went down and up versus down and up. So it's technically an iso, or you sit in the back of the hip, you push it up so it goes down, and then you travel it through. It's just isolated body rolls, boom, all the way up to the sky. You transfer your weight from your back foot to your front foot when you do that. D, 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 D for that part. It's cute, it's cute. Baby, don't say no. So honestly, I mean, I feel like there's some moments that I actually preferred how you did it. I think it was super fun. But this part right here, now Bada does have a more masculine pocket that she explores. And so does Kirsten. It's just such a like grimy pocket that's explored, which is still subtly different than how GRV does stuff. Gushy, then it don't stop. All this here, I wonder if you're noticing now that like you're not using your chest to help with some of these choices. And I'm saying like, I understand and I relate in the sense of like trying to match how people are doing the choreo in the K-pop sense as well as I can. And I personally struggle when I see that there's a deviation from all the members, like in 17's Maestro. Yes, they're known for synchronicity, but I personally struggle when they're not on the same page. I don't know who to follow because, and then my perfectionism erupts. So I don't know if you struggle with that, but I know for me, being able to match to a very specific degree in how they execute something, it can really get to me. And it can bring a sense of stress if I don't match 100%. And so that's why I try to like analyze myself when I do it too. But my point being though, there is beauty and artistry in being different too. So especially in a class choreo, like this is considered a class choreo, it's not considered a K-pop choreo, and so I personally feel there is beauty in people doing it differently if you follow blueprint. So I think you're doing a pretty freaking great job doing it. I am noticing a lot of things that I see in the K-pop covers, I'm noticing here in your own choreography and in the GRV one, that there is a limit in how your range is executed. There's not a ton of fullness, and I think part of it may come from you're using your biceps and triceps over your back. You're not actually utilizing it, and you're not loosening up the chest enough to actually isolate in opposition to certain lines. And in this case, like a lot of these where it's like a little Reebok, there's beauty in the freedom of using your chest in instances, and that just comes from doing chest isos. It also comes from connecting the dots and making them legato, and also practicing doing extensions but moving your body in isolation. It's low-key fixed point training if you think about it, based on the joints that are connected to your torso. So that's kind of like my overall thing I'm noticing here that I'm really seeing in a lot of these choreos. Hitting it through, and you also sit kind of in the middle on a lot of these choices, and there's not a huge commitment in your weight shifts, and so that's why a lot of times it kind of feels like you're hanging out on like this midline because you're not taking enough risk in your weight shifts, and that can influence a lot of the feminine choreos too that I've noticed. That was a freaking sick groove right there. I love that. I like that too, and I know that you had talked about you appreciate Bada's texture shifts, and I concur and I agree with you there, and I like how you did it too. Dope. The little da 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 boom. Now notice like how she does this, like a little petty groove is what I call that. And so I like her fullness here, but with her petty groove, like she has this little extra weight shift she does in that too. That right there, boom, boom, boom. I noticed that sometimes you're relying too much on your arm for certain execution whenever using the back's going to give you more power. Just in certain cases, I noticed it in the like that very first clip, the top line clip. I like that. But this is also a freaking full out routine too, and who knows how many takes you did, so more power to you for taking it. Man, can he do it? Yes, he can. This song though, man, Bada and Kirsten, man. It's cool. It's a vibe. Good job on that. I've learned this one too, and you did a pretty good job on this one because the choreographer is Isabel Capital, and her movement quality, she trained at her Chop Kiss dance family, and movement quality is freaking full out to that girl. And so you having the implicit posture or that information in your body of being able to do rocks and bounces is very hip hop fundamental. That's great. I love that. Being able to do that, you're able to showcase basic dynamics too of going fast and slow, which has a lot of that in here. So this is probably the best feminine choreo I've seen you do, like to a certain degree, or like a girl group choreo, if that makes sense. See? Yeah. Yeah, because you're using the rocks, you're using the hinge of the hips very well here. Weight shifts are cool, but I also know like a lot of these choices, you're relying a lot on your torso to make the weight shift versus the actual weight shift in your legs. Cool. I'm also trying to notice like where you're actually putting your weight. I'm noticing a lot of times you're putting it on the balls of your feet. Unless it's intentional, like a walk where you step on your heels. I don't know if that's just in this case, I'm just noticing it. Nice butterfly on that. Boom. Hey, match them great. So I think this one definitely, this is your niche of girl group choreo through and through. That looks awesome on you. It's your own choreo. But this right here, so it like totally reminds me of Brian Puspos. I have learned many Brian Puspos choreos, and how he sets up a lot of his syncopation in his arms remind me of him in that way. So I do mean that in a compliment. I do like your setup. I can see where you like. I can feel it. It's cool. It's cool. The little look. I understand that you can hear music. That's great. Great musicality. But also, I'm noticing that you do have a bit of a. You're not using your torso. Like, you're using it, like, in some of these choices with your arms, but you're not using it to create shapes or to allow your body, like, there's no kinesphere exploration. So I'm talking about, like, this top part of your space. That's definitely something that is so hard to do and feel really good about, especially when you're doing your own choreo. Like, that's from personal experience, for sure. But I like the subtlety of it. I can really tell. I can tell your vibes. It's a great vibe. The basses are nice. Boom, boom. That right there. Boom, boom. Do-do-doom. Cool. Love it. Ooh, that was nice with the fingers. I love that. Pop off, dude. Yes, great choreo on that. Kirsten's. That part, where you at now. How next she does is that they have this huge like speed changes that they like to do. Bah, da, 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 where you at? Like how they refine it is filthy. Like goodness gracious, their cleaning structure is top tier. So a lot of times whenever you see them do it, it's so clean. And even Kirsten doesn't do the same way they do, and I think that's totally fine. Yeah, and boom, boom, right there. Notice with the accent there on the head, boom, boom, as you take the wrist, boom, boom, nice little accent in between the two. But honestly, too, all of that right there, you notice the stillness of your torso in that moment. I think you just subconsciously isolate it. I think it's kind of like our chronic thing. And yeah. And that's just comes from your lived technique. So that's honestly, I mean, I think that's kind of my biggest note or my biggest thing. But once again, that's something that, if I'm being real, groups like, funnily enough, ATEEZ, I mentioned that about Mingi and Yoonho, that they both, because of their height, funnily enough, they operate very similarly to how your torso operates too, where there's a lot of stiffness that happens in the upper back, and some of that reflects over into some of their grooves that they do. They feel very subtle. Now, that's more of a like, something that I've observed across a lot of different groups that I've personally looked at, and ATEEZ just pops into the top of my head because I mention it the most with them. But a lot of their choreography is structured in a way that it kind of works in their favor, and they also have to sing at the same time. And knowing your background too, I can definitely see that replicated here. And so for you, if you specifically want to get better at doing feminine choreos, that would have to be something that has to be worked on or refined, is utilizing your back and not letting it live in this land of being super stiff, if that makes sense. There's beauty in it, and calibrating it to that really helps in a lot of styles and a lot of boy group choreos especially, but in the girl group choreos a lot of times. Easy by LE SSERAFIM is a good exception, but a lot of times, especially like Chungha's I'm Ready, like you gotta have some upper back utilization, meaning you take the lats and you rotate them back and down, and you use this, the kinesphere of the chest, and allowing your body to go for it in this angle while also isolating in the hips to create a really fun groove too. But that's once again, easier said than done, which is why I'm actually really happy to be making this video, because I am legit curious, would my feedback actually be helpful for you? I would love to know that. And I want to see if there's a way that I need to reword how I say things to be better at approaching or looking at movement quality. This is a really great way and a great test to do that. As a fellow content creator, I want to know so I can be better at doing analysis in the future. So once again, here's the thing. I feel like I'm learning and growing by watching you dance. So I thank you for that. But I love doing Crazy Form. Crazy Form is such a great choreo. I learned BB Trippin's version. I like that you did this version. Yeah, and I like honestly, I don't know if that was intentional. You did choose to do a hip ISO on that. I think that looks really cool. My ego in, so you actually went down instead of using the shoulders on that. So I don't know if that was intentional, your own choice, or just how you chose to sit in it. But I can tell that that's how you chose. And that right there, just feel like you isolated. That is technically a guada guada, where you sit, and it's the usage of shifting your weight into the leg that bends. And so there, I kind of feel, let me see. you kind of kept the weight in the middle, which kind of reiterates the point that I made earlier. I think you like to sit your weight in the middle a lot of times and not take the risk and letting the weight rebound between the two sides of your body. And that in turn causes you to not feel comfortable taking kinespheric risks because your weight's in the middle instead of over on the side that allows an opposition or counterbalance to take place in the torso. And that's a good example of it because I know that groove. I love that groove. And you're sitting in the middle, which is why the groove looks more isolated. And right there, you hopped into it, which is totally fine. Yeah, too. That was good. I really like that little extra bounce there. Love that. That was also good too, the little pelvic thrust. Yeah, put them up. And that one is, if you look how they do it, put them up, is they take the leg and they rotate it across the body and they lean away. But it goes back to their weight. They're taking weight risks by shifting the weight over and they're counterbalancing in the torso, in the chest. And that's why that part may potentially have felt a little bit over isolated. That put them up versus put them up, adding a rock to the back corners. Because you do a good job of rocking front, it's the corners or the back that's a little bit tricky to feel comfortable pursuing, is what I'm noticing. Michi pum, that was a little sunny finish. Cool, dope. Now, I just recently did this one too, so I totally get it. I know this one's older for you, but I learned this one because I just marathon Stray Kids. La 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 la. Now notice here that you're really isolating it and you're keeping your weight in the middle versus allowing a rock to allow the weight to shift to the standing leg and then you pick it up. So like there's not a lot of rock that's happening here in the hinge to allow dynamics between this section and this section whenever you watch Stray Kids do it. So they pick it up. That part's fun. Also, you are locking instead of throwing and using the back to create a propel and momentum for this stuff. There's a control of using the back to isolate, which is what I saw here, and to use it as an accent point. And that's just what comes with the more fluent you are in engaging the lats, squeezing or pressing down, or allowing the back to contribute to the power of your arms allows for you to be able to pick up on the differences between an isolation where your body's connected and swinging it and creating the chest opposite or creating opposition here to make this a really full moment by engaging right here in the obliques. That part, I like the subtlety. I think that was a conscious choice you made there. Yep, we got a rock. Now this right here, it does feel a bit isolated, right? So this right here would feel that you would want to take the chest and use it to the side as you pulse down. That's what's going to make that look lower, is the hinge at the hips and the usage of the chest. So that is definitely what I think is just overall just what I'm noticing is that right there. Ra, la, 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 nice and subtle right there. Great on the head for that. Dope. Yeah, I have no issue with that because you understand how to hit that sound probably better than most people, truly. Like that is such a staccato sound in how they chose to syncopate it and how they chose to isolatedly body roll it up. You nailed that. That was cool. Super dope. Got in music. This one, I mean, it's pretty good for the most part. That's a little toe tap with the sweep. For this, of course, you could think if you use a jack, boom, dun, 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 it's going to allow it to look more free, more natural, which is what really helped enhance this particular choreo on 17 specifically. And fun fact, this was the very first 17 analysis I ever did, so it has a really nice special place in my heart personally. It's very joyful, but I hope you're noticing, like, I'm not saying any of these things is like you need to change them. These are just observations that I'm personally noticing as an analyst and as a fellow, you know, reactor and person who analyzes dance content, that this part right here is definitely something that by navigating or figuring out a different way to utilize it outside of just stiff could be a breathing thing. Like truly, I think it could be that because I noticed it within myself and it did change a lot of my movement quality when I started breathing, funnily enough, which is why I asked that very first thing. And just breathing, creating some sense of letting the weight go in the directions and not just relying upon the keyframing to make it look like it's bigger. And I keyframe too, and I'm not saying that's what you're doing at all. I'm just saying that I know for me, I get a bit reassured when I get to keyframe choreo because it does look bigger a lot of times in some of my choices because I keyframe the camera to go that direction so you see it. Now, I still think it's fun though. I like the rock there, cool, super fun. That's a little Harlem, little knock there. And I know these, we're getting into like the older and older and older ones, so we've already seen immense progress anyway in your movement quality just by seeing you cover just such vast different choreographies, and more power to you, and I have a lot of respect for you for that, because a lot of people tend to just stay in a particular niche of choreo that they're good at. And so kudos to you for knowing that you're not 100% confident in girl group choreo, and this is not girl group choreo, I know that, but you still chose to explore it and put it on here. So, I mean, claps to you, like truly, love it. Actually, bum, bum, da, 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 da. Nice. It's fun. So in a nutshell, I mean, for the most part, just more looseness in the torso, which goes back to everything that I've talked about of how to utilize it, can really help make all of that feel a lot more comfortable. I have learned Seonggong, so honestly, I think this one, you did a pretty good job. This right here, it's gonna be the chest. Using the chest, if you watch how Dino does it specifically, if we're not even gonna call who it is, boom, notice he lifts, then he body rolls it down, and he sits and allows there to be a lean of opposition of the arm to the chest is what you're noticing there. And that's what creates that super like majestic effect in this choreo specifically. Good ISO for that. Yep, that right there, yeah, nailed it. So, boom, innocent anime. Boom. That right there, boom, boom. It's actually in the hips where you go and you're allowing to sit in the weight in the back of the legs, and then you move and take it, and it's isolated to the front as you dig it. So it's definitely something I can tell where we're trying to make it feel more comfortable. I totally resonate. Like, you have no idea how much I resonate with that immensely. I love that little camera effect, crew. Cool. And that right there too, I can tell you're using your tricep and you're not using your back because there's no torso engagement on that move. That's how I'm able to tell that. So that was better that there. I love my team. I love my crew. Danda party, a pop party. I love my team. This part right here is low key. It's like a Millie Rock is kind of the best way to look at it. So I love my team. And then he has nice subtlety. So good job there. I know that's one of your first ones too, isn't it? Right? Now, this one is a perfect example of where your weight, by whereing your weight goes, it can influence how a move looks. So in this case, I want you, that you do have your weight in the middle. And so it allows, whenever you're here, super shy, it's going to come across more isolated because you don't have any weight to bounce off of because it's stuck in the middle. You have a leg that's rotating versus having your weight go from the front leg, super shy, to rebound and switch your weight between the two legs as you do this. And that's why a lot of times your hips don't actually get moved in that particular part because you're isolating it from the knee. Your weight's in the middle versus committing from one side to the other. That was better, and I see that more on that second one for sure. But then on right there, whenever you reset it, you didn't reset the weight the same way, and that's why it doesn't look the same. This right here, I love how you're doing it because it's like it's low key. It's such a grungy vibe that you put there. I love it. I love it so much. Don't change that. Like, I actually really like your flavor for that. In that right there, you're literally doing, you're pulling one of these types of grooves. It reminds me of Ren, Cristalago, right, from Black Flag. It kind of feels a little bit like how he does stuff, right? But how you would sit, so like troubleshooting, how would we solve sitting in that? Would be actually like whenever you flap the hands down, take the weight, and you're actually making the hips complement the hands. So your hips would go, right goes up, 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 up. Then you would take your chest to go, because if I'm swinging this arm, I'm using this back to push my chest forward, pushing my chest forward, and then you would go the other side, and then it would be your left, and it would still be that knee that goes in, but how you would sit in it would still be accented. The arm that's going in, that would be the hip that you would accent with. So, which you do very well on this one. Like, honestly, right there is good. Super fun. I think that that was our last one. So yeah, I mean, I really love the fact that I was able to kind of talk through this, look at your movement quality in this way. And also, like I said, keep in mind, like, please take everything I said with a grain of salt. If you're like, that's not helpful to me at all, I would love to know if there's a different way I would need to word anything that I said to be helpful, because this is definitely this is only the second time that I'm actually doing an analysis on a dance cover artist like yourself. And I did it with Inabi as well, because she talked, like I said, about trying to be more, doing more masculine styled choreo. She struggled with that. So I gave a lot of pointers on how to dance more in the masculine styles. Because I've had to practice in both for my personal line of work and also when I teach students. It helps me be a better teacher when I empathize on both ends. And from taking a lot of online dance classes and from a lot of different choreographers, it's definitely something that does make life a little bit easier whenever you can switch between a feminine posture and a masculine posture. So I am hopeful that I'm actually was helpful in at least one facet to see if, just to make you feel more comfortable on styles like these, and even in choreos that felt comfortable, but maybe even more comfortable. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch. Thank you, Jarrell, for allowing me the opportunity to take a look at you in this lens. It means a lot to have your permission to kind of look at your movement quality in this way. It means a lot. And I'm hopeful that like I said, like, I truly feel this way. I want to be a positive contribution to your personal movement quality and growth as a human. I know that I appreciate it when people are helpful to me or they ask me these types of questions, because I wouldn't know that I was doing it unless somebody asked me. I think, like, the breathing question, for example, I was getting feedback from a choreographer, and he asked me that. He said, "Are you breathing while you're doing this?" And I didn't realize I wasn't until I was asked that question. So hopefully I'm able to have asked questions that made you look at your own movement quality and at least find appreciation with it, because I appreciate you taking these on, and I appreciate what you're doing and trying to grow people's perspectives of movement through analysis and through physically doing it. It's a lead by example mentality, and I always respect people with that mindset. So I thank you. Hats off. I can't take my hat off because my hair is crazy, but hats off to you. And I'm excited to see more of your future work. Guys, once again, my name is Jess, and I will catch y'all on the flip side. Bye.